Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Cheats Movement podcast. I am at the VPM ICA Media Center, and I am joined by a very special guest. This is a long time in the making for a long-time Richmond resident. We have the head coach of University of Richmond basketball, Coach Mooney, joining the Cheats Movement. Coach, welcome to the program.
Great to be here. Thanks very much. I appreciate being
I
on.
I appreciate this. I am born and raised in Richmond. I've been a Hughes fan for a very long time now, and I will say I happened to graduate from that university across the street. However, I've had a long tenured respect for what you've done over at the University of Richmond. It's been an amazing program, and it's been an amazing journey. I think the first question I want to ask you is, you are in the start of your 18th season here in Richmond. I know coaches say, look, coach speak is always when you take a new job, you're going to say, hey, I'm here for the long haul. I'm here for a long time. This is my home. And then, things change or situations change and so forth. Maybe not now, but maybe when you're going into this season, do you have a chance to reflect and say, man, I've been in this community, this family, this university for 18 years, and how do you reflect and what has drawn you to the University of Richmond for so long?
Yeah, well, I feel really fortunate and so lucky to have been here to be able to be the coach at Richmond, most importantly, and then to just live here. And we've had a lot of life events that have marked the time. We have two little boys who are 13 and 10, and to think we spent our first 5 years without any children, and what our lives were like then, and then since having the boys and little league and school and summer breaks and those kinds of things kind of have dictated just how our family operates and what we do. But yeah, when I reflect on it, that's probably the first thing that comes to mind, just how different my life was when we got here. My wife Leah and I moved in and didn't have children, and just how we approached everything at that point. And many parents can relate to that, how different things are when you have children. So, and now, obviously everything revolves around their schedules and their sporting events or, school activities. So, I feel the most overwhelming thing is just gratitude and appreciation that I've been able to be in such a great place for such a long time. Coaching at a great school.
That's a great point. Let me ask you this, and I didn't think of this, is I would ask you on the fly. If you can think back, what is it that you and your wife like to do when you first got to Richmond? What did you like to do the most? And now, and think about it, juxtapose that to now with children that are, like you said, in those years where they have, they've got their own schedules and so forth. What do you guys like to do as a family? So I know a lot has changed, but single coach, not single, but newly small family, no children. When you were kind of go out in the Richmond community, what was that like versus obviously now to the whole family, and I'm sure tons of family activities. How has that changed for you?
Yeah, it has changed dramatically. We would, we'd love to go out to dinner and out to eat, take weekend trips. But in Richmond, we love to go, downtown, and just kind of enjoy and be around and, hit a couple of different places. And of course, when you have children, especially, when they're under 2 or 3 years old, obviously you're more
Sure.
bound to the house and or hopefully a local place or pick up and bring it home. So yeah, it's so different. The weekends went from being, lots of things on the agenda to just being home and changing diapers. So
That's funny. I've got an 8-year-old son, and so I joke around. I'll never forget one day. I'm sure he was around 2 or 3, and it was like a Sunday afternoon. And it was me and my son, and I took him to the Children's Museum, and there was like this section of just dads. where it was I remember it was in football season, so it was a football Sunday, and it was like four dads just sitting there with their like 4 and 5 year old children, and we looked at each other and we're like, yeah, this is different now. Life has changed quite a bit.
Yeah,
um
exactly.
Let me ask, because not only obviously have you been at the University of Richmond for quite some time, the list of accolades and superlatives that you have managed to rack up. I mean, I don't want to go through all of them, but you're the all-time winningest head basketball coach for men at the University of Richmond. Two conference title appearances, two conference championships, the only ones that University of Richmond have had in the A10. Three NCAA appearances, Sweet 16 appearance, all of that stuff. And again, this is really tough to ask someone in season because I know you're looking at next game, but the body of work that you have managed to accomplish, again, not something that somebody goes in thinking I'm going to be or maybe you did, maybe you had a different attitude, but like, do you ever sit back and just say, this is crazy? Because again, I will say this too. I'm looking at you. I've seen you coach on the sideline. You're not an old man. You've got a lot more to do. So does it ever get daunting to you to say, man, this is we're starting to rack up some kind of historical accolades here?
Well, I really appreciate it. It's not necessarily how I would think, or a coach, I think, generally would think, and the biggest thing is being in the position for a long time. And so to that, there are a lot of people that would have an influence on that. The presidents and the athletic directors that I've worked with.
I checked. You've survived four presidents.
Yeah, right.
You've been through four presidents. Not
Yeah,
saying they were good or bad. I'm just saying you have
sure.
been there. The presidents come and go.
Right. Yeah. No, so there's a lot that goes into that. And then, we've had the assistant coaches, the support staff that we've had over the years, the people who've given to the program and been supportive financially, who've given their time to us. All those things are really, really important. And so, I don't think that I would look at it as this. Maybe one day I would look at it as the achievements that we've had, but I think more it's like, okay, well, we've built up to this, or we have an identity, so that's really important to us. We have this identity. Okay, now how can we enhance that? How can we make that a little bit better? We have okay, we've been able to recruit guys like this, or from this area, or be attractive to these type of guys more than we were before. So how can we continue to build upon that? We've been able to schedule nationally and play all over the country. Okay, so how can we continue to do that or enhance our schedule? So I think it's always trying to, those, whether they're victories or accomplishments, just trying to have that be the next block in how we're trying to build and grow to hopefully be better and better and better.
That's a good point. Talk to me about Richmond's identity. And now it's just to be frank, it has to be. It's an identity and molded in your philosophy and in many ways your image. But you really have built kind of an idea of what a University of Richmond team is, who a University of Richmond player is. Talk to me about your identity as a program and your philosophy in regards to bringing in players that you think you can run that. So when we think about a Coach Mooney team, what do you want people to know?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's probably the most important question of our program, or the most important piece of our program, is that we want to establish an identity of one, players and student athletes who fit the University of Richmond. So they're good students, they're conscientious, they're good people, and they'll make a positive imprint on Richmond, whether they are super successful in the basketball court, or whether they're just not quite as successful basketball wise. But that's really important to me anywhere, but especially at Richmond with 3,000 students, a private school, a really wonderful place to be able to go to school. We want to make sure that as the basketball team, we're so visible that we're always doing things right. And I would say, as a basketball player, we want guys who play smart, play tough, play together, And that's going to be really important in terms of just your willingness to play as a team, offensively, defensively, play team basketball, and have a really good feel for the game, because that's what we're going to constantly do, is talk about how we're playing together, awareness of where the other 9 guys are on the floor and playing together. And so I think that when people see that, that's really positive to me, because that starts in recruiting and identifying those types of players. Hopefully they're the good enough students that we can recruit and get accepted to Richmond. Then they're tough enough and disciplined enough to work very hard and be part of our program and learn from the older guys and be on the court and play a certain style, which mainly has to do with playing team basketball. But I think the advantage that we have is that it does start in the recruiting. So the very first conversation that we're going to have with a recruit when he's 16 years old is our style of play and what our program is about. And then those things are going to be constantly reinforced during the time through his recruitment and while he's here. So that's how we can get to be a very identifiable program and have an identity that is interchangeable from guys from 4 years ago or 8 years ago or 12 years ago that were playing a particular style based on that teamwork, that they both have the ability to play, and inside them they have the vision and understanding and discipline and appreciation to play that way also.
Now, hearing that sounds to me very. I wasn't in these rooms, but I can only assume, and people may not know this, you're a heck of a basketball player yourself. Hearing what you said about the identity of what you want University of Richmond to be, how much does that sound or parallel to the Princeton program from the legendary coach Pete Carell that recruited you and had you play as, again, most people may not know this, Coach, you were a 4-year starter at Princeton. But if you say, just a random basketball fan that has some knowledge of the game, who's the ultimate team? Like an ultimate team. I think some of those Princeton teams that you played on might come up. Is that a philosophy that you've always had, or is that something that kind of you learned from a legendary coach in your playing experience and you transferred it over? Where does that come from? Because it really does sound, it could be parallel.
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest thing is that's why I think I was really drawn to go to Princeton and play for Coach Carell, because in the recruiting process, especially now, recruits are told a lot of very positive things and maybe embellishments about how good they are. And
not you, Coach, not you.
Nah. When Coach Carell recruited me, he sat down and for the first 5 minutes, he talked about all my weaknesses. And for me, we got finished the conversation and I was ready to commit. I loved it. I loved.
Really?
Yeah, that he was just willing to be honest, and I agreed with him. And he talked a lot about passing and a sense for the game, and why those things are so important. So, yeah, I think that I hope that we're a lot like those teams that I was able to play on and before and after me. But yeah, I think that those, being direct and honest are pretty required if you want to have a team that plays team basketball, because you can't sugarcoat guys taking bad shots. You have to make sure that they are pretty directly addressed, and so that everybody has a good understanding of what a good shot is, how we're going to try to score, and how we're going to try to defend with all 5 guys.
Coach, here's a fun question for you, because again, I do say you're a heck of a ball player. Could player Chris Mooney play for Coach Chris Mooney? Would you have recruited yourself?
I don't know if I would have. I might have wanted somebody a little bit faster. Well, if you could play for Coach Carell for 4 years, you can play for anybody. So I'm pretty confident that I'd be able to play for myself, having played for Coach Carell.
Hey, so one thing that I don't think, even like I said, being a member of the Richmond community and being a hoops fanatic, I'm a giant hoops fan. You guys recruit Richmond and the surrounding Richmond metropolitan area pretty well. I don't think that it gets enough. In many ways, I don't think you get enough credit for always seeming to have a kind of a stable of a Richmond metropolitan member this year. It's the point guard Nelson that came out of John Marshall, but you guys do a really, really good job of getting kind of, like you said, your type of players, but you do a good job in getting Richmond metropolitan area kids into the program. I know the philosophy doesn't change. Maybe proximity does. And obviously, like I said, we've got a lot of competing D1 basketball programs right here. What's the sell to get a kid to stay home?
Yeah, that's a great point because, since we've been here, I've said our top recruiting priority is Richmond. We want to try to attract the very best of the local guys. I think we've had a Richmond player every year since we've been here, starting with Ryan Butler from Douglas Freeman and
Yeah, I remember that.
Marion Brothers from Benedictine, Trey Davis Benedictine. So, Nick Sherrod from St. Chris. We've really emphasized that, and obviously, one, it's easier because you know about these guys from when they're young and whether they've been to our camp or we've been able to see them very often. That's a good place to start. But I feel like this, the University of Richmond is part of the community and should stand out as an incredibly great place within Richmond. And I feel like when we've had guys from the area who've come to visit, they're able to see games, they're able to be here for pickup games in the off season and hang out with our guys. That's a tremendous advantage. And being that Richmond produces a lot of really good players, that's something that's really, really important to us. And yeah, we haven't ever played a game here without a Richmond native.
That's amazing.
We want to try to keep that going because there are really good players here. And, those guys are we don't recruit them necessarily harder than other people, but because of the proximity that we can get a little bit closer to them and know them and their families better. I feel like those guys feel a really strong sense of responsibility to be good players at their local school, because their families are at every home game, and because they're their friends and the people they were with in high school, they can keep such good track of them, whether more so than if they went out of state or something like that.
Look, when you say that, I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. That's like, look,
for sure, there's some pressure there for sure.
Right, I need to get away from some of this stuff. But it's a testament. I think it's a testament to yourself and the program, that you are, like I said, that you are able to recruit it, recruit the area, identify especially the types of players that you mentioned, Nick Sherrod or Nelson that's come to the University of Richmond. It's interesting because these are kids where you'll say, oh, they seem like UR players. It just fits. And it seems Nelson's a little bit taller than the point guards you've had in the past, in recent past anyway. But he's a go getter. These kids getting after it, and he's had a pretty strong start to the season, I believe. You've had, speaking of players in general, you've had, whether it's the Gilliards or the Andersons or the TJ Kleins, you've had a run of pretty amazing players. This year, I think all eyes are on Trey Burton and players and what he's going to do. As a coach, when you see somebody that now, like after several years now, has kind of been identified as, this kid has the potential to play at the next level, or this kid is going to be the leader of your program. What's those conversations like? Not just with Burton, but throughout the years, sure. When a kid is rose to captain status or something, and you have to sit them down and say, all right, this is what it's going to be now. It's a little bit different.
Yeah, for sure. I think, well, number one, I mean, it's great to, it's just such rare is a guy who could play Division I basketball and then play at this level and then be considered for the next level. So it's an exciting time, but it's also, the odds are completely stacked against you. Just statistically, the odds are it's a long shot. And even when you get on the radar, the best thing that the NBA does is, there's a tremendous amount of honesty and transparency from the NBA in terms of when they evaluate the players.
Mm.
And so you can get feedback, very direct feedback. And what they've also done is they've allowed players now to sign with an agent, even if they're going to return to college.
Right.
So they kind of like, they kind of unsign with the agent if they want to come back to college. And so there's more information available than ever before. The NBA teams are very honest. They're not in a position where they're recruiting anybody, so they don't need to sugarcoat anything or make anything sound better than it is. And so I think, like with Tyler Burton, like a big part of when we were going through it is we wanted to stay as connected to him as possible, which is easy because he's a great kid and we're talking to him all the time. Stay connected to his agent as possible and his parents as possible, just so that we were all seeing the same information being shared with everyone. And so we were able to do that. And Tyler's a great kid. And Tyler's also, unlike a lot of basketball players in his position, very realistic and appreciative of the truth. So he doesn't, he doesn't think I'm going to go and be LeBron James. He knows that, okay, this is the feedback I'm getting. These are the things I need to work on. This is how I have to apply it. So that part has been pretty good. And it's kind of matched up with how we would evaluate and talk to Tyler anyway. It just puts another element or another piece of the puzzle in play where we're talking about the NBA, the G League, overseas, those kinds of things. But the most important thing, I think, is the constant communication, making sure everybody's on the same page, and the honest and direct, being able to give and take that honest and direct evaluation to the player, from the family, in every way.
With that, has kind of the recent changes of college basketball in the last couple of years impacted you in a way that you never, for like NIL, for example? Is that something now that as a coach you have to deal with? Like, kids could always transfer, but what's happening now with the transfer portal I think it's just almost night and day from even what it was 6 or 7 years ago, especially 5 years ago, pre-COVID per se.
Yeah.
Those two things in particular, as you evolve and kind of do the things that you have to do, the transfer portal and NIL both are kind of separate entities, but how do you navigate both of those?
Yeah, it's so different now. Even I see, I think, a bunch of the ACC starting quarterbacks are in the portal, and Notre Dame.
It's like I'm a big baseball guy, and we're in the middle of just finishing up hot stove season, but it's almost like, NBA free agency or MLB hot stove season. It's like there's a countdown, and then on Monday the portal hits, and now you've seen, especially in D1 college football and college basketball, like, but it's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's almost like free range of motion. There's a
yeah. It's such a different time, and I think that I don't know exactly what the rule should be, but the difference between NBA free agency or NFL free agency is that's the player's a free agent after his contract expires.
Good point. I didn't think of that.
At this point, every single guy could be a free agent every year.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that's, as rules were becoming more liberalized and more, say, player friendly, which I think is a positive. We've also lost the idea that, that they could be a free agent every year. So that could be enticing to a player, even if he's quote unquote happy at his first place. He might be tempted to go in the transfer portal because he thinks he can do better. And which, again, I don't necessarily know is wrong, but it makes it a little bit more difficult and makes it a little bit trickier to, manage your roster, to recruit, to know who you have to recruit. And I don't know, I think that, we certainly see both the positives and negatives. So Richmond could go into the transfer portal and get a good player that we weren't
gotten transfers before,
that we weren't able to do in the past, that didn't have to sit out a year now. But the threat of losing guys after so much has been done in every way, in athletically, academically, committing to the guy, making sure he's surrounded by good people, all the things that are done. If that's lost and somebody else gets the better player, that can be frustrating. So again, I'm not sure what the rules should be, but it's so different, and it's created a I think that the overall basketball will suffer if the best teams can't even hold on to their guys,
Mm.
and you're always playing first and second year guys, even if they're older in your own program, first and second year guys. I don't know if the basketball ultimately will be quite as good.
No, I mean, that makes sense, and I just remember how hard it used to be. I would hear stories about like coaches in conference like denying a transfer, like
Yep.
you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
nope, you can't transfer in conference, you have to sit
Right.
out a year, and there's parts of, like you said, there's parts of the portal that is good in regards to having kids play right away and not sit out. As a basketball fan, I will say the thing that confuses me the most is the extra COVID year. And I know why they did it, and they're supposed to do it. And that's great. But now I literally see players that I think is like, yeah, that's got to be like a 6 year. It's like he's got 2 years of eligibility left. What's happening here?
Yeah.
What's going on? Has NIL impacted your program? Do you have to have conversations with kids about kind of selling their likeness and image?
Yeah, we do, and the university, our athletic department, has done a great job. Richmond's unique in that we have both a business school and a law school. We've collaborated with those two schools in our athletic department to create, as thorough and as clear an NIL, opportunity as you could have. And there the NIL, I think, originally was meant for a student athlete could capitalize on his likeness in a video game, or maybe
That's how
uh,
that's how the O'Bannon lawsuit started.
yeah,
I don't know
exactly,
what it is now.
yeah, um, or helping to sell a car or
Sure.
hamburgers or something. So, but now it's become a little bit different than that. And again, I don't know if that was what the intention was. And again, I'm not sure that it's wrong, but I feel like the opportunity to attend college, graduate college for free. There's a lot to be said for that, and I don't think it's wrong for players to be able to make money. And I think the old rules where some guys, you weren't allowed to work a summer job if you were on scholarship,
Yep.
those kind of things. I don't think they were correct either. But I don't want to, if a kid makes a college decision and another transfer decision based on his
Yeah.
few $1,000s in NIL money, well, that's not nearly as impactful as graduating from the best possible school with the best possible degree and the best possible GPA. Like, those are the things that will impact you for the rest of your life. That 5, 10, $20,000, that'll likely be gone pretty quickly.
Absolutely. Coach, let me ask this. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm joined by University of Richmond head basketball coach Coach Mooney. He is in his 18th season at the University of Richmond. And we were talking about as well, not just your love for basketball and love for the university, but your love for a greater community. One of the things that you've often done charitable activities. I know the one that stands out to a lot of us is was it the celebrity cook-off, or is it the wait? Were you a celebrity waiter, or was it a cook-off? It was for Positive Vibes Cafe,
Yes.
and it was a long-standing situation. And that's just one of the kind of charitable philanthropic type things. So quickly, can you cook? Is that a cooking thing? And then talk to me about the kind of the give back. I know sometimes you have your players go out and do different philanthropic things, but giving back to the community at large, and why is that so important to your program?
I appreciate that. Positive Vibe Cafe is just an incredible place, and we did the cook-off for many years. And since
I think it
VCU's
was
had,
COVID. It was
yeah,
COVID,
yeah,
right? That ended.
right, exactly, yeah, and but it's a great place that helps to train, basically anybody with disability, to be able to get work, and through their training program, I think it's well over 1,000 people have graduated from their training program. And thus can help to make a better life for themselves. And it's just a great place. And we did that since VCU's had a bunch of coaches over the years. I've had that.
You've battled quite a few.
Yeah. But I cannot cook, and we're paired with a chef in Richmond, a local chef in Richmond,
Right.
which has been great to meet those guys over the years, and it's really been a fun night. But yeah, the University of Richmond has a great partnership with Special Olympics, so we've been involved in that. Our guys have read dozens of grade school and middle school students and talked about the importance of their academics and education. And our guys have been adopted some young people over the years as part of our team. Some things have just been really very special, and it's great for everyone involved, and as almost as much as anyone, the players, because they see the impact or the stars in the kids' eyes, or how much of an impact they can have because of the platform they're so fortunate to have. So that's really been a great part of our job, and something that's important to all of us.
Coach, I'm going to get you out here on a last couple of fun ones here. Look, I don't know if you're going to know this one. I hope so. But is recruiting any of your players easier? Have you ever used the fact that a famous hip hop rapper by the name of Dave East played under you? Are you familiar with this? Have you used this with your kids?
Well, we have not used it in recruiting, but we do. We usually do have. We'll play some Dave East music during one of our talks, and talk about. It's a way to talk about him and a teammate of his named David Gonzalez, who was a great player for him.
Sure, absolutely.
But yeah, hilarious. Dave has done incredibly well in his career, and while he was here, he was a rapper, and would be on campus rapping,
yeah.
and I think his studies suffered a little bit because of that. But he really wanted to be, and to see him make it in what I'm sure is an incredibly competitive field, is terrific for him. He could really shoot the ball now. He could really shoot.
He really. That's what I've heard. I heard if there was a rapper basketball category, he'd be at the top of the list.
Yes,
like they say of rap. Look, again, I've alluded to this in the past, but you are, it's a little ways removed. It's not long removed. When was the last time you challenged a player one-on-one?
That's a long time ago. That's at least 10 or 12 years ago. Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah. That was the last time. Now, do you get out? I remember when I was years ago when I would play hoops. There's this funny thing, because a lot of times your players don't really think you can play. They just think you're the coach. They don't know. And I remember seeing a couple of my coaches get out there and really shoot the ball and really shoot the rock. And it's like, I'm like, what's going on here? But that's really funny. Do the players that play for you now know what type of player you were?
Well, I don't think they do. And when we were first here, we were all so young. The assistant and I would play a lot, and I think we would enter a team in the intramural.
Fun.
We won the championship, I think, 3 straight years, and then retired ourselves.
Oh, that's funny.
But no, they're not aware and probably don't care. So that's probably
funny.
This is fine as it is.
Well, Coach, I won't get you out of here without asking about, like you said, you have 2 boys now and a family, and they're playing sports and so forth. Do they play hoops? Is hoops their sport? What do they like to play? And how hard is it? Look, as a coaching mentality, how hard is it to watch your children play and have absolutely nothing to do with the outcome or their kind of teaching in that sense?
Yeah, to be honest, that part has been fine for me. They both play a lot of sports, including basketball. Obviously, they're around basketball constantly, so they're pretty drawn to that. But no, I can usually watch and be very quiet and just enjoy the game. I mean, I suffer when there's a bad play or one of my sons makes a mistake for sure. But But no, I can be quiet. I know what it's like on this side, and I
That's
know the coach
funny.
doesn't need any more voices for sure.
That's funny. I'll tell you quickly. Funny, like so I coach my kid's baseball team, but my son started playing soccer. He's 8 years old, and I know nothing about soccer. And I'm just like sitting there with my wife, and my wife looked at me one soccer game and goes, "Yeah, you need to go back to coaching or something because I can't sit beside you during a game because I had like no outcome, nothing to do. I'm just sitting there watching, like
Yeah.
very emotional. She's like, you got to do something with yourself. So if you're able to sit there and not cause any commotion, you're doing a good job, coach.
I appreciate that.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Coach Mooney. The season is going. They're back on the court on Saturday. You have a really, really fun team this year. We didn't talk too much about this particular this year's team, but had a good trip up to Brooklyn. Got a win out of Temple. I was actually at the VMI game, the season opener. Is there anything about this particular team that you're looking forward to as they develop?
Yeah, a lot. I think that, we've opened with a very good schedule and a bit of a new team. And so, to be honest, I'm really high on the team. I feel like we have some room to grow, but I think we have the direction and have an understanding of what needs to be done and how we're going to try to get there. So, yeah, I'm excited about this group because in our days off, every guy on the team is in the gym.
Mm.
After practice, the vast majority of the guys are sticking around. They love to play, they love to compete, and I think it has the makings of a very good team.
Excellent, Coach. Well, best of luck as you as you go through the rest of this season. You don't think this way. I would, as someone, I would say, look, no matter what, the next win I have is going to just set the new record for wins at University of Richmond. I know you can't think that way, but if I was the coach, I'd be like, look, I'm already playing with house money over here. Coach, wish you the best of luck as you continue. This has been really fun, and hopefully we'll be able to do it again sometime down the road.
That'd be great. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
This is the Cheats Movement podcast. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, we see it.